It's your boy Zay-P that I am. I am that I am, as you are that you are, for we are all that we are. From the individual to the many, for the many comes the all, and the all is one. So I wanted to get back into a new video today because coming through this recent Lion Gates portal, the collective energy has been rising. There's been a lot of high vibrational energy coming in, and it's kind of forcing a lot of shadows out of their hiding places. It's forcing a lot of darkness out of the room. Once we come in with the light, naturally the darkness flees. The darkness dissipates because that's what happens when light interacts with dark, right? So with that, here in the physical form, that means release. That means letting go of energetically. That also means resolving issues, dealing with stuff head on. And if you want to maximize this energy, right now is the time, coming through the end of the Lionsgate portal, coming through the end of this particular gateway that allows us to jump vibrations in a sense. You really want to take your time to do your work, your due diligence in releasing and resolving. And that may require forgiveness, self-forgiveness, or forgiveness of others. That may require confronting certain things, expressing unresolved feelings and emotions. That may require just getting out of your safety zone, making whatever new transitions that need to be made. All of these things that we have in mind but that are unresolved and unfulfilled. The more we can start to take advantage of this new energy coming in and use it to bolster us in our efforts, and use it to allow it to expel whatever kind of darkness, whatever kind of stale or stagnant energy, the changes that will come forth from it will be supremely empowering, right? This is why this is the Lionsgate portal, because the strength and the power that you receive through doing the actions, through connecting with this energy, is going to allow you to really step into your own kingship, step into your own divinity, basically. This is why it's the Lionsgate portal. When you think of lions, you think of the attributes that they have: regal, royal, kings, the king of the jungle, right? Like, that is the basic statement. So these are the attributes that you want to embody. And what that requires is courage, courageousness in dealing with the things that we need to deal with. For a lot of us, that comes dealing with the trauma. That comes with facing our fears. I popped in on Facebook recently, just yesterday as a matter of fact, and was instantly bombarded by all of the save our children hashtags, or save the children hashtags. By the way, I believe it's Save the Children that is connected with Bill Gates and George Soros foundations, but you should do your due diligence and research that for sure. You want to make sure you're promoting whatever proper movements that you're trying to associate with. So that's a sidebar. But that said, I was bombarded by all of this. One of the big things that the collective is working on releasing is the entire collective sexual trauma, the pedophilic sexual trauma that's happening within the collective, that is starting to come out now more and more. You see a lot of people who are quote unquote light workers, who are quote unquote way showers, teachers, who are just aware or awoke, however you like to identify yourself. There are a lot of people who are finding out this information, spreading the information from a place of good intentions, but at the same time magnifying the fear aspects, the darker aspects of it. It's infuriating stuff, and it's heartbreaking to see, and it's disgusting when you think of all of the pain and hurt and the trauma and the ripple effects it has throughout our cultures. Oftentimes, victims grow into becoming abusers, things of that nature. It cascades throughout the society. So with that said, it's not to sound insensitive or heartless about it, but this stuff has been going on for eons. And this is not to say dismiss it, but as you become more exposed to it, as your eyes are becoming more open, the invitation is for you to think about what actions you are trying to take. What are you going to do in a practical sense if you want to make some sort of change with regards to this particular movement? Same thing with the Black Lives Matter. Same thing with all of the peaceful protests and the quote unquote rioting, whether that is uh, other affiliations trying to, usurp a particular agenda and, push forth their own thing. That's besides the point. The point is, all of these dark issues that we've been facing in 2020 are coming up for us to see and for us to deal with. And it's been one thing where your individual self, your individual family has to deal with that, and you deal with that in the quiet. You deal with that in the darkness, in the shadows, and nobody ever knows that, oh, maybe your family has gone through this particular issue, or maybe you and your friends have gone through this particular issue, or maybe you in a relationship, has gone through certain particular issues, right? You in the workplace, women in the workplace going through issues that they often will have to keep quiet or keep to themselves because that's how society has programmed us. But now collectively our eyes are exposed, and the invitation is for us to look at each other, to look at what we're dealing with, and decide what we are going to do. That said, everybody magnifying the messages without context, or everybody so enthralled in passion and spreading awareness, which is a beautiful thing because you want the awareness to get out there. The time is coming for us to look at the actions we're taking and how we can best affect that. And so what's been coming through to me from Spirit is that, again, as with the collective and the individual, both being aspects of each other and reflections of each other, and what's happening within is a reflection of what's going on without, and vice versa. We aren't really invited to step into and face and deal with our own individual stuff. So this is like, turn to your neighbor and tell your neighbor, don't cast the first stone against somebody else. Deal with your own shit, right? So as we can deal with our own stuff, you got trauma in your family. Maybe there's sexual abuse. Maybe there's pedophilia. Maybe, you got the creepy old uncle or aunt or whatever it is, and those truths need to be confronted. Those things need to be lifted and gotten off your chest. Maybe certain places and people and things need to be rearranged, whether it's getting out of a particular situation, getting out of a home, whatever it is. Maybe the time for that action to come is now, because this is why all of this is coming up in 2020. This is why all of this is coming up. This is the year, they say it's the year of the vision. Our eyes are opening, right? We're seeing all of this darkness in the world. But the thing is, you don't want to mistake the darkness in the world that you're seeing for something just external. Understand everything that we are seeing and that we are resonating with externally is because it is happening somewhere within us internally. There's some part of you that has some particular aversion, has some particular reaction, is triggered by these things for a reason. And there are things for you individually to work out and to resolve, right? And if we spend all of our time projecting and externalizing without actually doing the work internally, without actually doing the work right here at home on the ground level, then the collectives don't change. All of the hashtags, all of that, that's nice, that's beautiful, but we talk about save the children. Start with your individual children first, right? You're home, you got your kids, however you're doing it, you're making sure, talking with your children, having honest conversations if you can. You're making sure that they are feeling comfortable to express to you, what's happening in the house, what's happening out of the house. Making sure that any particular issues you might have dealt with as a child, they're not having to deal with, right? And then you branched that out to the local community. Then you branched that out on a grander scale, right? And you can get in where you fit in with the bigger movements, right? So there's a march in your area. You want to volunteer, do some volunteer work. You want to, volunteer at a hospital or a clinic or whatever. All of these things help in the collective sense externally. But until we start dealing with ourselves individually, our own individual in the home, at home base, our immediate families on that individual level, the entire collective is going to move slowly at a snail's pace, because all of the outcry for changes throughout the world have to start somewhere. And ultimately, they have to start with us. So the recent Save the Children, pedophilia, all of this information that's coming forward in the last year or so, 2 years or probably like 4 years or so, because I've been hearing about this stuff since like 2016, hearing whispers and slowly building and to this grand crescendo, right? The point is, all of that stuff, as it's becoming more and more exposed in the public eye, is going to be really indicative of what we have to deal with individually. We got racial issues that has been under the surface that's coming up. We've got sexual trauma issues with children, sex trafficking things coming up. There's more that we have to deal with coming up. And if you can just look at your own fears, your own places where you feel inadequate, your own places where you feel unwhole, incomplete, unfulfilled, all of these types of energies that are disempowering, you can start to anticipate what changes need to be made before it hits you like a thunderstorm in the everyday world outside of yourself. Before you start seeing all these stories on the news that start to, bug you out of your mind. So with that, you want to be able to be proactive and take that action and start looking inward with regard to where you can actually start taking practical steps and then growing it out from there. The invitation that's coming forth is that there's a lot that's happening that we don't see behind the scenes. And this is not just the dark and the cabal and all of that. There's a lot of light happening behind the scenes that we don't see, just as well as there's the dark. With that said, at the end of the day, the only thing that ultimately matters first and foremost is what's happening in your scene, in your life, because that is the place where your power starts. That is the place where your power emanates from. And until you get that cleared up, and until you resolve and work through your own ego issues and work through your own purging and cleansing, not until, because we start the work even while we continue to work on ourselves. But once we do that work, well, then we really speed the ship forward. Then we really start to move things together as a collective on a much faster pace. So that's the invitation from Spirit that's been sitting on my chest. Is to come through and drop the message of starting at home, starting with how you can protect your individual child, how you can protect the neighborhood children, right? I had a friend of mine recently who went through on her Facebook thing. She went through her local town or something, and she found all of the sex offenders, and she posted it. She got a lot of backlash about it, but there was a lot of positivity in her feed because she was putting out a notice as far as like, oh wow, she didn't even realize how many sex offenders and those who had dealt with children were in her area. So just sharing some information like that, albeit scary, can also be informative, right? Either way, it can be an experience or an action taken from an internal place that helps empower and that helps create some sort of change, right? Now, wherever you lie on that side of the argument, whether it was good for her to do or whether bad, if it felt good for her to do and it allowed her to resolve some of that issues and some of her fears and some of her anxiety, then it does good for the entire collective, because she's exposed some things that allow others in her community to really take a look and see what needs to be changed, or see if there's a way that they can mitigate potential fears. All sorts of actions can come forth from there, right? Obviously, I would hope with some compassion and some love from all parties, because those who hurt people have been hurt themselves. We know that. And so that's the main message that I wanted to come through for today, reminding everybody there's so much externalization with the energies that's happening. We want to take advantage of this Lion Gate, step into our divine royal kingship and kinship by starting at home, starting with making the changes, starting with making the man in the mirror, right? Now I hear Michael Jackson. He's one of my guys, so yeah. And I'm starting with the man in the mirror. I'm asking him to change his ways. And no message could have been any clearer. So peace and blessings, y'all. It's your boy Zay-P.